to education. This is NBV3E, grade 11 Native Studies, and the course is Beliefs, Values, and Aspirations of Aboriginal Peoples in Contemporary Society. So I'm Pete, and I'm your teacher for the course. So welcome to week 3 of our 9-week course. We've already gone all the way through Unit 1 in your course materials, so we're going to start on Unit 2. So we're making some good progress here. Hopefully you're able to follow along and able to start working on those key questions. I do recommend that you not leave those key questions. Just keep working on them. Don't put them off, because every time we have a new lesson, there'll be another key question. Okay. Now it is, you can sort of fall behind a little bit on them. That's not uncommon, but try to work on them whenever you can. If you're having some problems, of course, just call me, to email me, text me. All my contact information is in your study guide. All right. Now, this is a pre-recorded lesson, so if you were thinking of calling in today, don't do it, because I'm not in the studio. I'm probably on an airplane somewhere between Pekanjigam and Sioux Lookout, right as you're listening to this, unless you're watching it on the archive. So anyway, yeah, so don't call in. This is not a live show today. Anyway, we'll work on it as best we can. So the lesson, the topic today is about identity, and kind of let's so these pages, it's for the whole thing. So this is our lesson 6. So this is unit 2. So if you don't have the unit 2 handout, you have to get that from the DEC right away. Now, just a reminder that at the beginning of each lesson, there's some learning goals expressed as I statements for you, the student. What you're going to be able to do, not necessarily at the end of the lesson, because some of these things take a little bit of time. But certainly by the end of the unit, you'll be able to answer most of those. Now, if you're looking back and you're doing some review and you find that you really can't answer some of those, or you don't feel confident about those learning goals, then that would be the time to either go back in the course material and read it over again, or ask me for some help. Okay. Remember that learning kind of unfolds. It's not an instant thing. It's not like you read something or you talk about something in class, or you do an assignment and then boom, you understand it. Sometimes it takes a while. It can take a few days. It can even take a couple of weeks for something to kind of for you to be able to make sense of it and understand it. Okay, so don't worry if you don't immediately understand everything as soon as we look at it. Okay, I know, yeah, there's always somebody like that, right? You can just read something and just boom, know it. But most of us have to kind of think about things. So when we're thinking about identity, here on page, I think it's probably, what's it going to be, like page 6? No, page 2. Page 2 of the course. Now remember, we're unit 2. And we have this question, what is identity? Okay, so let's just start thinking about that. And I'll just write here on, this is page 2, and this is unit 2. Okay, unit 2, page 2. And I'll just distinguish those from each other. So in the course text, it says, the course material, it says, how do you decide who you are? Okay, and what your place is in the world. How do you feel about how others define you? Okay, so, and then they give you some ideas there. So what is identity to you? Now, we would normally have a class discussion, so in this case, maybe you could ask someone, right, to talk to someone about it, or just ask yourself, what is your identity? Okay. So is it where you're from, right? So my identity, I'm from Ottawa. I'm from the Ottawa Valley. Is that my identity? Okay. If you're from Fort Severn, if you're from Sandy Lake, if you're from Pekanjigam, is that your identity? Okay. Is it your material possessions? Is it your, right? there's a guy around town who drives a Cadillac, right? Is that what the person is? That's what I know them as. I don't know the person. Or is it your hobbies, right? So yeah, he's a snowmobile racer, right? He's a stamp collector. Is right? Is that your identity? Okay, so you see that there's different aspects to it, and I think, um, how we view ourselves and how other people view us can be can be different. Okay, so in the text, then the course material, they ask, how would you describe yourself? So that's how would you describe yourself to someone else, right? What are you gonna say? Okay, are you gonna tell them your age? I know when I was 10, 11, 12, 13. The first thing I tell someone is my age, what grade I was in school. Okay, I don't think I've told anyone my age in a long time, right? So, identity may depend on where you are in your journey, right? So it says perhaps you'd start by telling your age or your ethnic background. For example, you're Métis or Inuit. Okay, identity is a difficult term to explain, and it can mean different things to different people. I think that's what I was trying to get at, right? Some people see me walking around with my camera. Oh, that guy takes photos, right? Some people might see me walking around on my snowshoes. Oh, that guy's always stomping around in the woods, right? So what factors shape how you see yourself? That's important too, because, right, we're gonna point out the things that we want other people to know, right? The easiest way to explain the concept of identity is this. Identity is what you think, know, and believe about yourself. Okay? Now, sometimes that will be influenced by what other people think of you, right? But not always. And there's always people that don't care what other people think about them. And there's other people who care a lot. And then in between, I think most of us, we kind of care a little bit, but maybe it's not such a big deal. So it says many factors are involved in determining identity. That's many factors. And we thought about worldview back in chapter 1, and what goes into shaping our own worldview is quite a large um, interrelated group of factors, and I think we're going to find the same thing in what determines our identity. Right? Some are internal and others are external. Connections to other people, right? Whether it's through your ethnic background, religion, or geography, is very important to identity, right? Certainly, right? It's what the people around you, kind of are part of your identity in some ways, right? You can have a sense of yourself as an individual and also have an identity as a member of the community. Okay. So, you may know me as a teacher, right? And certainly that's part of my identity. There's a whole bunch of people in the world who watch my YouTube videos. I make YouTube videos. It's one of my hobbies, and they just know me as something very different, right? Making these videos. Okay. So that's it, right? It's just like you might have a day job, and then maybe you're an amateur musician at night, or maybe you're a painter at night, or maybe you go off and as you said, race snowmobiles. So it's all part of your identity. So think about that, because it's really an important part of this um, step in the course material. We want you to kind of look into yourself. Who are you, right? And how did you get to be you? Okay. Now, I'm going to quote Chief John Snow. This is from the course material. So really, I'm just quoting it and just asking you to think about it, because it's in the course. Okay, so what Chief John Snow said is this: I am an Indian. I am proud to know who I am and where I originated. I am proud to be a unique creation of the Great Spirit. We are part of Mother Earth. Okay. So what are your thoughts on this? Now, just to kind of maybe be a little more specific, does it resonate with you? Is that something that, do you, um, does this resonate with you? Not at all? A little bit? A lot? right? It's entirely possible, depending on your identity and your worldview, uh, to look at this in very different ways. Okay, and now the course text kind of, and unfortunately the formatting is a little bit mangled here, but basically this is the next idea. It says, of course, everyone is different. So they will have different views on what identity means. And then they go on to say that Aboriginal identity is very colorful, diverse, and complex. Okay, indeed. Some people would probably find this word offensive. That I know that, right? And some not at all. So that's the thing. That's where the identity comes in, and the fact is very different. Now, in the last few lessons, we've looked at the keywords, and they've given us 6 keywords or phrases in chapter, lesson 6. So instead of me just going through the definitions, let's look for them in the course text and see if we can find them. And then if there's a few left over at the end, then we can go ahead and look on Google or Wikipedia or somewhere to try and find these definitions. All right. So, yeah. Now, let's take a look at the next thing they ask us to do is the support questions. Okay, that's on page 3 of the um, unit. Okay, so what they're asking us to do, they're giving us a bunch of space to write our answer right in there. It says, look at figure 4.3 in your textbook on page 112. Would you add anything to this list? Choose 5 factors that, okay, so we need to actually look at the course text, and that's page 112, and it's figure 4.3. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Now, I'm having just, please bear with me here a little bit. Yeah, I think that's what we want. And I try to, okay. All right, we're gonna have to do it this way. Yes. Okay, this is what happened when I for some reason I'm having a little bit of a problem um, opening 2 pages at once, 2 notebook files at once. I think this will probably be solved in a moment here. So just bear with me. And yeah, so you see here, I'm just kind of doing my computer thing. So it's page 112 is what we need. You see how having computer skills kind of important. I'm a teacher, but really being able to do stuff like this is kind of uh, part of being a teacher nowadays. Okay, so here's the page that we're looking at, and the figure that they want us to look at is right here, 4.3. So let's just zoom right in, okay, and we can zoom right in some more. Uh, See if we can really have a close-up look at this figure, because it's kind of printed on a black background, so it's a little hard. It's even hard to read in the text, and then when you scan it in. So for the information down below here, it says, would you add anything to this list? How might this list be different for you in 10 to 20 years? Right? So I already mentioned that for me, and we have a class discussion about this, but because um, we're not able to have people calling in for this one, so let me talk about age. I already talked about that. My age was really important when I was young, right? Up until probably I don't know, maybe when I turned 21 or something, it really stopped being important. I remember that when I turned 25, I was able to be bonded, though I had already had a security clearance for many years, so that even didn't matter. When I turned 30, um, I noted it. It was the first really big birthday that maybe I wasn't looking forward to, and then it's just kind of not really important to me. Maybe I'm starting now to think, because I'm maybe thinking about retirement in quite a while, but still I got to start thinking about it. Um, so age is a little bit, but I don't define myself by my age anymore. Okay. Culture, religion don't really define me. Now, some people do. I know lots of people that are very, very involved in their culture, very involved in their religion. Part of it, I think, is my own upbringing, which didn't really um, uh, impart any really strong sense of culture or even religion in me. But that's who I am. Okay. So, what are some other things? Worldview. Maybe my worldview certainly does influence me a lot. Um, and self-esteem, I think maybe in some ways influences me uh, because certainly I've been bold in some of the stuff I've tried to do, right? Um, Taking some classes that maybe were maybe a little more difficult than some people would think I could do, and just kind of been kind of bold about that. What else? Well, homeland, certainly, you know, it's being from the part of Canada that I'm from. I certainly have a sense of pride in being Canadian being having a sense of pride and coming from the Ottawa area, not Ottawa itself, Ottawa Valley. So there you go. And my education, of course, has been a big impact on who I am. It's defined the jobs I've had. It's defined in a large measure where I've lived. Right. I was an engineer for many years. I lived in the United States for a while, down in Texas, in Florida, Virginia. So it was, and I got to travel to Japan, to Germany, a lot of interesting things, and it's directly as a result of that education. And that education also opened the door to me at one point in my life to say, you know what, I don't want to make things anymore. As an engineer, I was making things, computers and parts for rockets and satellites and stuff. And it was fun. It was paid well, but it just wasn't as fulfilling as it had been. So that's when I got into teaching, and that's something that I really wanted to do. So, and then what's teaching? Teaching is all about education. You got to go get some more education. Family, in some ways, certainly my immediate family has supported me a lot and enabled me to be who I am, right? Can you imagine somebody comes home and says, you know what, I want to change careers. I want to go back to school and learn something new and start a whole new career. Will you support me? And oh, by the way, I'm not going to get paid for a couple of years while I'm in school. If your family supports that, then it really can shape who you are. Okay. So what would you add to this list? Is there anything that you would add to this list? Right? It's sort of hard to see, um, but I don't know, appearance? No, I guess that's, obviously, you know, I don't know, if I looked like a model, maybe would I be doing modeling instead? I don't know. It's not been a problem for me. So values, certainly important. Values. Uh, there are media messages. Now that's an interesting one, eh? Are we influenced by media messages? Certainly when I was younger, I think I was a lot more than I am now. But maybe I'm just not as aware of it. Who knows? Okay. Socioeconomic status, certainly. All right. I don't see anything new that I would add, but maybe you could come up with some things, right? Um, okay, I do see one thing that's missing on there that we might be able to add. With your first language. Okay. If your first language is something different other than English, I think that may influence who you are. Or if it is English, that certainly would influence who you are, right? Oh, it does say language. All right, well, it says language, first language. Okay. Hobbies? I don't see hobbies on there. Uh, Hobbies, and I sure hope I spelled hobbies right. Um, yeah. Being a bad speller. So hobbies, does it influence you? Well, some people travel for their hobbies, right? If you're an amateur marathon runner, maybe you're gonna, travel down to Boston. Maybe you're gonna go to Vermont and run the hills there, right? If you are a stamp collector or a coin collector, maybe you're gonna go places. There's someone I know who lives in Hong Kong who travels all over the world, um, and because of her hobbies, right? And she actually got a job I don't, that's sort of related to her hobby, so that she can, get I think get it her um, travel funded and as part of her job. So it's kind of a cool thing, right? So your hobbies might even lead into, maybe you can sell some of your, if you're like an amateur painter, or if you're making beadwork, or if you're doing making moccasins as a hobby, sewing, maybe that will lead into some sort of economic opportunities. A lot of things on there that are related to hobbies. Okay. So, and it says family, so I guess I could talk about that. Your certainly your children might influence you, things like that. So that's what we're being asked to think about here in this question. Okay. But there are some other parts of the question, and let's just flip back quickly um, whoops. Okay, so now I have to open up. All right, let's see if I can make this work here. I'm going to save this, and this is going to be, I'm not sure if it's exactly that, but not, we'll try it. There we go. All right, and now let's see if I can open up my, oh, that didn't work. uh, Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here. So how about something like, I know some people that had an intense fear of public speaking, and that really influenced them. They were limited the sorts of things that they could do. I've was nervous public speaking a few times, but I somehow got over it, and I've actually ended up doing a job for many years where I had to speak publicly almost, certainly every few days, and so now I'm a pretty reasonable public speaker. That's certainly influenced a lot of who I am. Okay, so I think I've got this technology thing sorted out. So what they're asking us then on page 3, uh, you look at the factors. So I came up with a few, but I think they're pretty well covered on there. Would you add anything to the list? Choose 5 factors that describe your identity. Oh, okay, choose 5 factors. Now remember, this is for you. So you can write these down. You don't even have to write them in the book. You can write them somewhere else, right? Because, maybe some of that stuff is personal. You don't want somebody to, read that. So that's fine. We're not going to ask you. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. This is an exercise for you to do yourself. Okay, so describe how each of these relate to you and your identity. See, this is part of something we call reflection. I'm going to actually write that on the board here. Okay, so reflection is a process of thinking about our own actions, thinking about our own thoughts, thinking about the things we've done in a constructive way, right? So not beating yourself up, oh, I should have said this, I should have done that. No, it's more of, what did I do? How did it work out for me? What went really well? What could it be improved? Okay, so it's a positive kind of thing. Okay? So if I give this lesson, right? So I give this lesson, and then I go back to my office and I think about it for a few minutes. What worked well? Maybe that opening question where I asked you to think about your um, identity, right? And gave you a few prompts. Maybe that went really well, or maybe not. See, I don't know until I have somebody calling in and telling me. But maybe that went well. So what didn't go well? Well, some of the technology. I had some problems opening my file, right? And so, but it's not a negative thing, because now that I know what didn't go so well, now I can come up with some steps to fix it. Okay, well, next time I'll open both of them at the same time. I won't try to start a new file when I got an old file open, which I think is what went wrong here. Maybe do some testing back at my desk when I'm not teaching the class. This is reflection, and this can help us in a lot of ways, right? If you take a course and you start falling behind, right, the reflection may help you. Okay, why am I falling behind? Is it because I need help? Right? Is it because I've taken on too much? I have too many other things I'm doing, right? Is it because the course is too hard? And then once you have an idea of what the problem might be, then you can say, all right, what can I do to fix it? What can I? Okay, so this is what we call reflection, and that's why um, the question is saying. Describe how each of these relate to you and your identity, right? Because they don't want you to just put down the list. They want you to actually say, all right, why did you pick this? Why did you put it down? And remember, this is you don't have to hand this in. You have to show it to anybody. Um, it's for you. And then finally, how might this list be different for you in 10 to 20 years? Okay, so you know, I can think of I think of my own daughter, who was a teenager, and she was a fashion into fashion. She was so into fashion that I know a lot about fashion now. I know about manicures. I know how much the special manicures cost. I know about how all the different, hairdressing and everything costs, clothes, you name it. I know about it because I paid for it for quite a few years. Of course, right? I only have the one daughter, my only kid. So that's fine. So this is if she had described herself back then, I'm sure that she would have said, yeah, fashion. That's it. Right? Not school, not family. Well, maybe her friends a little bit, but it was all about the fashion. And that's fine, right? That's who she was back then, and that's what got her through her teen years and maybe her early 20s. Now, I betcha she probably doesn't even think about fashion. Probably doesn't even think about it one bit. Why? Because she's a mother. She has a young daughter, and so that's her role, right? Um, as a mother. So things change, and they can change very quickly depending on your circumstances, or they can change very slowly. Okay, and so maybe it might be helpful for you to try and look ahead, right, 10 to 20 years, right? How might things change, right? And right now, for example, I'm a certain way. I have a certain worldview, certain identity. I have a young granddaughter now, right? But she's a little too young to really interact with her. I can watch her antics and see pictures of her, but really I try to say hi to her, and she doesn't really say anything back yet. But in 10 years, she'll probably be asking me to send her money, right? In 20 years, maybe we'll be able to talk about her, um, you know, career and her college courses and stuff like that. So things are very different, and I would probably be different, and have a different identity, as a grandfather of right now a little toddler, and then in 10 years a teenager, and in 20 years, a young adult. Could be very, very different. Okay, so now they've asked you to kind of do that, and now this could be difficult. What is the most important aspect of your identity? Okay, the most important aspect. Now that could be tough, but they're asking you to kind of go through those lists and say what influences you the most. You may not be able to come up with just one, okay? Because that's in a way it's kind of unfair to say to yourself, well, this is the thing that defines me the most, right? Certainly for me, my education probably is one of the most important ones, but then so are my relationships as well, right? Um, so yeah, it really is kind of hard to come up with just one, but see if you can come up with a couple, top two or top three. Maybe you can come up with top one. Okay. Now, question number three is what influences how we see ourselves and our sense of identity. Okay. Now this can be pretty profound. Okay, and sometimes we can actually go through life and really have a sort of a eye-opening moment for something. Okay, so I think how other people see us and how we allow that to affect us can certainly influence our sense of identity. Okay, so case in point, 10 years old. I'm very small. I've always been small, tiny, smallest kid in my class by a large measure, and a little clumsy at the time. And so, I saw myself as pretty much being a victim of bullying and being an old weakling and being kind of pathetic for a while. And I don't know exactly what happened, but somebody decided I should take up wrestling. Okay, Greco-Roman wrestling, which is it's sort of a Olympic style sport. So I started wrestling, and guess what? I was really good at wrestling, really good. And it has to do with I had very good reflexes, and I was fairly strong for my size. And so that was a skill in which I could actually do very, very well. And I was, winning wrestling matches. And now this is not the WWE. Okay, I'm not that kind of wrestler. This is a Greco-Roman wrestling. You can look it up. Okay, that's where you're on mats and stuff like that, not in a ring. So that helped me a lot. And then another thing is a teacher, a little while after that, noticed that I was pretty good at distance running and got me into distance running. And I did that for many, many years. I was very, very good, not particularly fast, but certainly good distance runner. And so, those incidents in my youth kind of helped me see myself as a lot more athletic and a lot stronger than I had before. Right? So those were very strong influences for me. So I stopped seeing myself as a victim of bullying and as being someone that had something to contribute and someone that had some physical skills, right? I could certainly run further than anyone and for a short sprint a lot faster than any bully. And I could wrestle quite well too. So um, that was something, right? Now, what other things might influence your sense of identity? Certainly where you're from to some extent, right? If you have a connection to it, right? So, if you live somewhere for a little while, maybe you don't feel such a strong sense of um, identity, a strong sense of connection to it. But once you've lived somewhere for a while, you may develop that, right? So, I think I've been in Sioux Lookout for, I guess, 5 years now. And so now I really do feel like I'm part of Sioux Lookout and I'm kind of part of it. And, the longer I stay here, the more roots I'm going to get. Um, Getting a home here, buying a home here made a huge difference, right? Because now I'm here as opposed to renting. And, maybe next year I'll move and maybe the year after that I'll move. Once you get a home, though, it makes a difference. So these are some of the things, right? Our sense of identity. What if you buy a nice new truck? Right? You get a nice new truck down in Dryden, down in Winnipeg. Manage to sneak it up the winter road just before everything breaks up. So now you have this nice new truck, right? And you're going to drive that nice new truck around your community. Everyone's going to see you driving it. Does that give you a sense of identity? Certainly people are going to say, yeah, the guy with the new truck, right? So a lot of things can affect our sense of identity. Okay, your hobbies, right? And okay, so now the next one, and I think they're asking us about the quote from Chief Dan George. So let's take a look. This is on page 116 of the course text. So now I have to go and see if I can make this magic work another time here. So I'm going to go to the next page. I'm going to insert a picture, and I'm actually going to just to make things easier, I'm going to insert this picture here. That's not the page we want, but we're going to need it later. So now I'm going to put this next picture in here. Okay, 116. I think that's the one. Okay, so I'll just tell you a little bit what I know about Chief Dan George. When I was in school in grade 5, one of the class projects we had, so I was 10. So one of the class projects we had every year was to look up a, a, a an important Canadian and write them a letter, tell them that we think they're an important Canadian, and could they please send us a picture so we could hang it on our wall. And in the wall of our classroom around the top, we had pictures of prime ministers and pictures of scientists and pictures of hockey players. So, important Canadians. Okay, so we looked up Dan George. Now remember, we didn't have the internet back then, so we had to go and find out from encyclopedias and from we yeah, like an actual big paper book back then. Um, and so we decided that Chief Dan George had really done a service to Canada, and so we wrote him, and sure enough, he sent us back a picture and a nice letter, and I remembered that. Okay, so that was my sort of connection to Chief Dan George. So let's see. This is page 116, figure 4.6. Okay. And so it says here, after reading the quotation by Chief Dan George, what do you think he values? What do you think contributes to a sense of self? All right, here we go. Let me zoom in a little bit on this because it's dark text on a dark background. And this is kind of, let's see if we can go a little bigger. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay. So he says, when I fought to protect my land, my home, I was called a savage. When I neither understood nor welcomed this way of life, I was called lazy. When I tried to rule my people, I was stripped of my authority. Shall I thank you for the reserves that are left me of my beautiful forests, for the canned fish of my rivers, for the loss of my pride and authority even among my own people? Okay. So, and that was in 1967. That's pretty profound. So, what does it ask us to do? It asks us, what do you think he values? What do you think contributes to his sense of self? Okay. Well, what do you think? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so you can go through it, and I can't say that I right can be certain what Chief Dan George values from this quote, but I can get some clues, right? He says he fought to protect his land, his home. Okay, and I'm pretty sure he's not referring to himself individually, but as his people, right? His nation. He said, I was called a savage when I neither understood nor welcomed this way of life. Okay. Oh, okay. And when I was called lazy. Okay. When I tried to rule my people, I was stripped of my authority. So that clearly affected him, and so his leadership was taken away from him. Okay. And of course, then his beautiful forests, his rivers, and then the loss of pride and authority. And again, when he talks about my pride, I'm sure that he's talking about, he's referring to his nation. That's my sense anyway, right? And not a personal thing. And then even among my own people. Okay. So it is interesting to see people's views and how people develop their own sense and express their own sense of identity. Okay, and we're all different, so keep that in mind. Some people are going to have a very strong sense of identity with their community. Okay, and as I've explained, I moved around. Some people may not so much, right? I'm from Ottawa, from the Ottawa Valley, and I really, it was a great upbringing, and I really enjoyed growing up there. But now if I go back to Ottawa, I don't feel that same connection to it simply because it's changed so much. It's a very different place than it was when I was growing up. And I've been away from it now. I probably feel as much of a connection to Sioux Lookout, my new home, um, as I do now to Ottawa, because I have nothing there. I don't have any. The land that I used to hang around on has been sold probably many times, and it's not my stomping ground anymore, right? It's somebody else's. So so that's the thing, right? If I still living in Ottawa, if I still had a piece of land there, then I maybe feel a very strong sense of connection to it. Okay? So understand that. So just because other people have a different identity than you, it doesn't make them right or wrong. Okay, it doesn't make you right or wrong. Okay, identity is personal. That's what we're trying to sort of get at here. Now, the next one, which is support question 5, let's take a look. This is on page 118. So, how are we going to do this? I think, you know what, I'm going to see if I can do this thing again here. All right. Well, I got off to a rough start with this. Whoops, with this technology, but here I am. Seem to be doing fine. This is page 118. Of course. So there you go. Does that mean I'm a little okay? Let's see. So it's figure 4.7. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I think I have to zoom out a little bit. Yeah. All right. Zoom. All right. Remember how I was saying I was doing well? Not anymore. Okay. So this is figure 4.7. It says Sandra uh, Lovelace Nichols, a oh boy, Wolastoqiyik woman. Wolastoqiyik. All right, well, I tried there. Was appointed senator in 2005. Okay, in 1979, she and her children took part in a walk from Oka, near Montreal, to Ottawa to raise awareness of discrimination against First Nations women. In what ways have you seen people raise awareness of a cause? Okay, so that's so what are we supposed to, we're supposed to read the caption. That's what they said. Okay, so so how would you raise awareness for a cause? Okay, that's interesting. I know, for example, I see people wearing pink shirts on a certain day. That's an anti-bullying day, right? So everyone wears, or they wear pink, right? I've seen people wear arm bracelets, right? People certainly do walks. There were some young people that recently walked to. I should have had this on my. I should have this actually. They're in Thunder Bay right now, and they walked in memory of a student who was killed in Thunder Bay. Okay, so they raised awareness of a cause. Okay, so there've been a lot of ways that people have raised awareness for a cause. Okay, I know back when I was in Saskatchewan, we actually the whole school we made up signs. We walked around the uh, community um, and as a just as a supportive thing for members of the community who were having some problems, some difficulties. Okay, so we walked all around, and walks seem to be a very common thing here as well. Okay, but nowadays you can also make a website, make a YouTube video, right? You can sing a song. Cheyenne Hovorka makes some music, and some of it certainly is a message as well. So yeah, there's all sorts of ways that people can do it. So what the question is in what ways have you seen people raise awareness of a cause? Okay. I know years ago when there was a water problem in Saskatchewan, I believe that somebody sent some photos to the media, showing some of the consequences of having some bad water, and that really, well, they have a new water plant. Let's put it that way. So maybe that helped. Maybe that was what it was needed. Um, so raising awareness. So um, yeah. So and that's I guess that's what they're asking. Uh, Raising awareness. Um, let's see if they have some. Yeah, so there is now what I suggest you do for the course text, and let's see if I can go back a little bit here, is read these sections because we really didn't read the course text about identity. We just kind of read the captions and kind of did the exercises. So you really should go in there and read it, and especially the outside influences on the next page here, page 113, and I'll put all of these up on my Facebook page so that you can read them. Okay, so this may actually give you some ideas about what other sorts of things influence your identity. All right, well, let's go back to the course material, and let's take a look at those key questions before we wrap things up here. So now we're on to key question 6. And keep in mind that there's usually a key question after every lesson. We're probably doing it one lesson, usually 2 class periods, sometimes 1.5 class periods, something like that. Okay. So that gives you an idea of how fast you should be working on these. Basically, you should be able to get one of these done at least every other day or so to keep up. Okay. So, and remember, I'm here to support you, right? So don't stress about these. Do your best. Send it in. I'll give you some positive feedback. Okay. All right. So the first one: summarize key information about First Nations identities, Métis identities, and Inuit identities. So you're just going to go into the course text and read that over. And they actually under Aboriginal identities, starting on page 114 in the text. Okay, so that's from page 114. If you want to do it from your own perspective, that would be perfectly fine. They're basically just looking for 3 different ideas, 3 different points in there. Okay, 3 by 2 points each. Oh, 3 times 2, 6 different points. Okay, yeah. The math teacher can't multiply 2 numbers together. Okay, and the next one, why do you think it is important for people to represent and express their own cultures and identities? This is really a biggie, right? Isn't it? So we're looking for your ideas, not my ideas, not the textbook's ideas, your ideas. Now, maybe you might agree with all of my ideas or the textbooks, or not. We're looking for 4 ideas, right? Because it's worth 4 marks. So what I would suggest is you'd have 4 different points, right? And then you're going to have an opening introductory sentence and a concluding sentence that kind of wraps up your points. And then 4 different points. That's how you get the most marks for that sort of thing, right? Why do you think it's important for people to represent and express their own cultures and identities? Okay? It's it's one of the things that we have a great, it's not perfect, but in Canada we have that right to be ourselves, basically, to be who we are. Um, and and it's not true in a lot of places. So um, something to something to really kind of go into your thinking there. So it says here, page or part 3. It says read Delbert Major's works on page 114. Words on page 114. Okay, so which is also part of question 1. It's a little quote in the upper left-hand corner of the page. Okay. In what ways are his ideas reflected in other examples in pages 114 to 123? Give your answer in 1 to 2 paragraphs. So you're going to need those pages in the text, and I will post them on my Facebook for you. All right, so here we go. And this is, roughly how I'm going to mark that paragraph. That's how the course text says that I'll mark it. Keep in mind, I'm not a real harsh marker on this stuff. What I'm looking for is your ideas most first and foremost. I want your ideas. Okay, everything else, I'll give you some feedback on it. I'm not gonna be be super critical of your spelling, your grammar, or anything. I'll point things out, but you'd really have to be really mangle stuff a lot to lose a lot of marks there. Okay, so don't stress about it. Do your best, and I'll be as supportive and helpful as I can. All right, well that's going to be it for this lesson. So we'll come back on Tuesday and it'll be live. So if you did have any questions, you can certainly get a hold of me either by calling into the class or through the all the contact info that I provide in the study guide. All right, well thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you more.